The text in Matthew 2, 1 through 12 tells of the Magi, possibly Zoroastrian priests from Persia, coming to visit Jesus at the time of his birth. They were primarily perceived as astrologers by Matthew, not magicians with some otherworldly powers, but experts with special knowledge. It's paramount to stress that despite references to celestial phenomena, the Gospel of Matthew is not an astronomy book, neither ancient nor modern. Rather, this portion of the first Gospel is Matthew's explanation of the confluence of exceptional events associated with Jesus' birth. Simply put, it is written through the eyes of faith. Matthew isn't concerned with the starry sky. His chief concern is to convey that once these Magi found a new king, they were overwhelmed with joy, regardless of the means by which they were led. Though perhaps weary from their journey, once they entered the house and saw the child with Mary, his mother, they did what they set out to do. They knelt down and paid him homage. And before leaving, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, offerings associated with Zion's coming glory and the anointing of priests. The Magi are apparently completely unaware of the personal and political turmoil their presence and message would bring to King Herod. In verses 2 through 3, the Magi come to Jerusalem first, expecting to find the king they seek in that appropriate location. Herod, whose ruling power was centralized in Jerusalem, would obviously find the Magi's questions about this new king extremely disturbing. Yet they are outspoken and naively honest with Herod about all they know. It's not until verse 12 that the Magi, in a dream, understand the workings of the real world and the dangers it presents. A star initially led them to Bethlehem. This time, a dream leads the wise men safely home when they left for their own country by another road. So I invite you to listen as we read the Gospel of Matthew and let God's light guide you to new life in Jesus Christ. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." When Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time that the star had appeared, then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out. And there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I remember when I was just a boy, a young boy, my mother would come into my bedroom, especially on school mornings, and shout, "Rise and shine." 9 times out of 10, my response was to pull the covers over my head and hunker down into my pillow with the hopes that maybe, just maybe, she'd go away, at least just for a little while. But Mom was unrelenting, whipping the covers off my fetal positioned body, shouting even louder, "Rise and shine." my face in my pillow, I would utter a muffled, "Go away, I'm sleeping." With that, I would feel a sharp slap on my hindquarters. And I would come up, knowing that the hand that delivered the sting with an even dose of affection and reprimand wasn't going to tolerate any more non-compliance. "Arise, shine, your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." These words were most likely written in Jerusalem after the exiles had returned to a war-ravaged Israel. It was a rallying cry to a people who had been subdued by the enemy and held in exile in a foreign land for over 50 years. Looking at the enormous task of rebuilding almost from scratch, can you imagine their response to this optimist, "Rise and shine"? "Go away, leave us alone, we're sleeping." But the prophet wouldn't be silenced. He had a vision of renewal beyond anybody's dreams. The release of the exiles inspired in the prophet a renewed hope of God's promise fulfilled in his people Israel. It didn't take much to spark Isaiah's imagination because he was a person of deep faith. He saw in their return God's action, not just on their behalf, but on behalf of all peoples. Isaiah wasn't a person with a small vision. When he envisioned the future for his people, it was a vision of epic proportion. "Arise, shine, your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." Wait, don't go back to sleep. Yes, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples, but the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Those words remind us of the familiar words of John's Gospel. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. They are the words of faith and hope that bear witness to divine incarnation. God's coming into a world full of darkness and disorder to shine the light of truth and good for its redemption. In the remainder of our text, Isaiah describes the vision of when all the world will come to know God through the testimony of God's people. And Jerusalem will become the center of a new world order. Isaiah's vision of the age of Messiah. Isaiah wants his people to grasp his vision of God's reign in their lives and the implications of that reign for all human existence. Often we hesitate to give our all, both substance and effort, because we don't look beyond what we think is humanly possible. Why invest in something which we don't have confidence? But Isaiah is calling us to a vision that is unfettered by human limitations. He sees what God can do, and then what we can do when we obey the God who is doing a new thing, who is making all things new. I believe this is a word we need to hear today, surrounded in the darkness of the world. Violent attacks on innocent people by terrorists who try to cloak their evil deeds as religious fervor make no sense. People starving, thirsting, dying of disease while wealth is guarded by a small fraction of the world's population, who justify its hoarding because they have been blessed by God and they're just taking care of their own. I'm encouraged by the philanthropic work of Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett, who work to help the world's poorest people lift themselves out of hunger and poverty, to harness advances in science and technology to save lives in developing countries, who have pledged to eradicate polio, to improve U.S. high school and post-secondary education. And you know what? Melinda speaks openly that her faith has been a guiding light to her compassionate generosity. The Gates have given away more than $35 billion, and Warren Buffett has given away more than $31 billion, all to the Gates Foundation, all for these purposes. They plan to give it all away in their lifetime. Two of their criteria for receiving a grant are risk-taking and results. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will appear over you. Open your eyes of faith, and you can see the glory of the Lord. Open your hearts, and it can shine through you. Let us not forget that our outlook, our vision for life, isn't dependent upon what others are doing. It doesn't depend upon whether the world lives in darkness. We live by faith. Faith that God is, not will, but is making all things new. By faith, we see it happening all around us. But we don't see it unless we open up our eyes of faith. Isaiah calls his people to visualize with their eyes of faith. Lift up your eyes and look around you. This is a favorite expression of Isaiah that implies more than simply to catch sight of. It means for the beholder to grasp in its full ramifications something new and significant. Without faith, all they would see would be rubble and ruin in the city to which they have returned. With faith, the fact that they are returning is a sign that God is right now drawing all of creation toward himself. That's what Isaiah sees, and that's what he proclaims for the people to see. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. And nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. It's a vision produced by faith that calls God's people to faithfulness. Isaiah had an epiphany, a vision, a revelation of what God is doing, and welcomed his people to embrace that epiphany so that the light would be a beacon directing all nations of the world to God. In Matthew, wise men from the east followed the light of the star. There are all sorts of conjectures as to who the wise men were, where they came from, and how they came to follow the star. Suffice it to say, for Matthew, this story is a sign that the age has dawned in the birth of Jesus, as authentically the age of Messiah, when all nations shall come to behold the glory of the Lord. The Magi from the east are forerunners of the new creation we have experienced in Jesus Christ. We are heirs of Isaiah's vision. For us Gentile Christians from the nations of the world have beheld the glory of the Lord in Jesus Christ, and we have come to his light. The wise men returned home by another road. Matthew tells us why. They were avoiding King Herod, who wanted to use them to find and kill the Christ child. But beyond that, their lives had been forever changed by what they had seen. Their lives would take a new route because in him they had seen the glory of the Lord. That's what happens when you lift up your eyes and look around and grasp what you see in the light of Christ. Your perspective is forever changed, and you go home by another way, in both subtle and not so subtle ways, a different person. It changes you. In Jesus Christ, we have a new vision for the world. A vision based upon what God will do through us when we live into that vision. In Isaiah, the vision is of people from all nationalities bringing their wealth of resources as an offering to God, giving God their praise and worship, giving their wealth for the healing of the world so that God's justice will reign and all people may flourish. They come to God in response to the light shining forth from God's people. We are invited to catch that vision, to be involved in making it happen. Because we too are God's people, and God has chosen us just for that purpose. People of First Presbyterian Church, it's time to shine. I'm not talking about just a select few, not just the elders, not just those who step up to leadership. The light shines brightest when all God's people shine together. It's time for everyone, every one of you, to shine, to get involved in the life of this church so that you can be an effective witness for the new life we have in Jesus Christ in your home and in our community. If you believe the vision of the prophet Isaiah, if you believe the good news of Jesus Christ, then let your light shine, for your light has come. Everybody, rise and shine. I mean that. Stand up now. And repeat these words after me. Arise, shine.
Arise, shine.
For your light has come.
For your light has come.
The glory of the Lord has risen upon us.
The glory of the Lord has risen upon us.
If we lift up our eyes, we shall see and be radiant.
If we lift up our eyes, we shall see and be radiant.
Our hearts will thrill and rejoice.
Our hearts will thrill and rejoice.
The blessings of the Lord will come upon us.
The blessings of the Lord will come upon us.
We will arise.
We will rise.
We will shine.
We will shine.